The Democratic Party take black people for a fool. The Democratic Party treat blacks if they still own blacks as if we are still in slavery. They demand blind loyalty from blacks, absent of any results to the black community.
How do you respond to people who felt like your absence was disrespectful to Madam Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden?
Yeah, it's not about disrespect, right? But it is about accountability. And what we were basically saying was that we thought that it wasn't the time for another speech. All throughout 2021 would have been a great time for speeches, but it wasn't time for another speech, and it was a time for action, right?
I will not absolve the 50 Republicans in the United States Senate from responsibility for upholding one of the most basic and important tenets of our democracy, which is free and fair elections and access to the ballot for all eligible voters.
What about Senator Manchin? What about Senator Sinema?
I don't think...
Senator Joe Manchin has come out against the For the People Act, effectively killing progressive signature legislation.
Bills help treat the symptoms of the disease, but they do not fully address the disease itself. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division infecting our country.
The reason for the picture of them next to the Trojan horse was because of the fact that that's what they are. They are Trojan horses within the Democratic Party. They are really Republicans. The entire time Joe Biden has been president, these two have done everything within their power to block his agenda, right? Now, Joe Biden is not for blacks. That's correct. Let's get that correct. And this is why I say he's had opportunities to pursue the Voting Rights Act, but he wanted to secure white people and let them know that he would do things that would work in their favor first, and then use black people in order to get in office again. Since midterm is coming in, he said, okay, let's push it now, so that way we can have blacks come in and vote for Democrats so I can get done what I want to get done. But it doesn't benefit us. But as an example, they've already broke the filibuster to pass other bills.
President Biden saying last night that getting rid of the filibuster, at least to lift the debt ceiling, is a real possibility. And a source tells me that Senate Democrats discussed this option during their caucus lunch yesterday.
You see that motion?
They created a special process to, in fact, lift the debt ceiling this week. And they suspended the filibuster to do it. They what?
That motion was to bypass, which they have a law in effect already, to bypass the filibuster. They did it for the lift the ceiling debt, and they also bypassed the filibuster to pass the infrastructure bill. Small business contract discrimination. Procurement and access to financing are two barriers that minorities owners face. Small business contracts discrimination refers to the notable disparities in the number of government contracts that go to minority and women-owned businesses when compared to other small businesses. Government contracts represent a significant source of income for small businesses. The U.S. government has made it a priority to send federal contracts to small businesses since the second half of the 20th century, and the amount of money spent on government contracts is increasing. Reports have suggested that differences in contracts received at all levels of contracting can be attributed to outright discrimination on structural access to capital that aid some firms over others in competing for these contracts. The government has attempted to decrease these disparities through affirmative action programs, but it is unclear how successful the programs have been, and court rulings have narrowed their scope. The U.S. federal, state, and local state governments represent significant sources of procurement. Okay, when the government purchases goods and services from private businesses, it is called procurement. In the United States, this type of contract spending is increasing. Wisconsin is a heavy prison state. So for you to understand that, let me understand. When you sending your loved ones, TVs, and products to the prison system, right? It's limited which companies could send that, who you can purchase from, right? So you can only purchase at one time. You can only purchase from maybe 3 companies, right? The only Wisconsin company you can send your family a TV or a radio from was J.O. Marcus, which was owned by Jews. So you got a prison system that's predominantly filled with black people. You got black people money that they have to spend to send their loved ones, right? And they have to spend it to a company that's acceptable to the prison system. And the prison system decided that they will only allow this Jewish-owned company to send off these TVs, right? Not allowing you to set up companies and businesses to do the same, right? In the fiscal year 2019, the federal government spent $586 billion on contracts, a 40% increase over fiscal year 2018. That was fueled mostly by National Defense Service, according to figures from the U.S. Government Accountability Office. Of that sum, $225.8 billion went to small businesses, right? It is an explicit goal of the government to move a portion of its expenditures into small businesses. The federal government, for example, automatically set aside most contracts under $150,000 for small businesses. Moreover, since the end of the 20th century, much of the government expenditures have been spent on contractors rather than on employees. In 1995, federal spending on contractors was higher than it was on employees. Consequently, a significant chunk of government budgetary expenses goes to small businesses. However, a disproportionately smaller percentage of this federal money finds its way to minority-owned businesses. U.S. General Services Administration expenditure reports for 2019, for instance, showed that the Department of Defense, one of the largest areas of expenditures in the U.S. budget, spent almost $27 billion of, or about 8.6% of its business on business from disadvantaged communities, compared to about $75 billion or 24% on small businesses in general. Meaning small businesses, just like the small black businesses, right? The small white businesses, the government spent $75 billion with them. And then businesses under what is considered the disadvantaged businesses, the African-American community, Latinos and all that, and white women, right? They spent $27 billion, right? But I want to show you something now. Let me make sure you can see this. More white women than minorities are benefiting from affirmative action. State numbers of Erie County, in one sense, bears that one out in the tally covering January 1st, 2011, January 21st. Of this year, firms owned by white women won 56% of the $475 million in work. That had increased over the 48% of $146 million they got from 2007 to 2010. So this is what white people do. So a white man will have a construction company. This is why Biden pushed the roads and highways, the infrastructure. This is how it benefit white people and not black people. Let's understand what I'm saying. So white people, a white man will have this construction company and he will get the general contract. Now he is allowed to hire minority or disadvantaged businesses, right, to get a portion of that contract, right? So them companies can bid 10% higher and still receive that portion of the contract, which is paid through the government. So what the white man does is he go grab his wife, and he sets the company up in his wife's name. So it all stays in family, but they're getting the minority set aside contract money, right? And then what they do is they said there was no black company that was available to fulfill this contract because there was no black company that had the equipment to fulfill the contract because there was no bank that was willing to loan the black people the money to fulfill the contract. You see what I'm saying? Where the white people, when they get the contract, they go to the bank finances the work, right? And so any additional equipment that they don't already have from various past projects, they're able to finance. And so when you're not able to receive that financing, right, they say there's no Black-owned business that's capable of fulfilling the contract. So therefore, these white women benefit from the affirmative action. This is why Joe Biden passed and pushed for the infrastructure bill. If you ride up and down your freeway, you will notice that those are white people jobs. When you look at the construction work in your community, you're going to notice those are white people jobs. The jobs that you're going to see the Black people have, if the jobs where they go around filling up the potholes and things of that, which pay less, and are jobs that are paid are part of programs that pay a portion of their child support. Know what they are doing, Black people. You got to know who you are following and learn who to listen to. Pay attention to how white people come at us from all angles. It's not just the Republicans. That's how they come at us from the Democratic side. This is how the liberals benefit, right, off of our plight.